Tony Romo. It's a game of cat and mouse. So
I don't know, Jim.
No, I just think.
All right, Mike. Here's your best matchups of the week. We're going to go over them, give a little bit of a prediction. Starting with, we're starting with this as the best matchup, or good matchups. Giants and Carolina face off in what could be the toilet bowl of the week. Now, there's a few of those matchups, but we're specifically honing in on this one. Does Cutlets get in the game? Does Carolina continue its win streak beyond one?
There's a lot of compelling stuff. I don't think Cutlets is not getting in because Drew Lock has to get in first. It is an interesting matchup, Dirk. I will say that this one is like one of those weird games where teams are fighting to stave off relegation, and you have no idea what's going to happen. I hope that Malik Neighbors, ends up continuing to have his great rookie campaign. Would like to see him really continue to shine. For the Panthers, it's good to see Bryce Young take steps, and I hope this game turns into a shootout. Honestly, that's all I could say. My intuition is that probably the Giants are going to win this thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think the Giants win this one, but I will say, Neighbors, I think he's making a case that he was actually the better pick over Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that says, well, and I think there's some validity to it. Look at him change the performance and change that game. I mean, Arizona, Kyler Murray, they're not terrible. The Giants?
They're bad.
It's not good. It's as bad as, how is it that both New York teams are as bad as they are?
On the flip side, Murray has other targets to work to also. So
that's fair. That. Yeah, there's a great tight end in McBride in Arizona as well. So, and Wilson's not bad in that receiver core as well. So, but turning over to our next game, we're going to have a lot out of the NFC East. Dallas taking on Philadelphia. This one's played in Jerry's World, Mike.
Yeah, this one actually, it could have been on upset alert, but oddly, Dallas has sometimes played well in these sorts of games, so it's not even so much of an upset. It is, however, like a Cowboys team in desperation mode. And Philly, on the other hand, trying to get it rolling. Like, we've talked about this team as potentially being a Super Bowl contender, and there are times that they look like it, but even last week, that game got very sketch for them, and Jacksonville almost drove down late in the game. So
I think a lot of it with Philly is sorry to say, but I think it's a head coaching issue. How many times were there just boos left and right because of just terrible play calls, like jet sweeps on third downs? And I think Jalen Hurts is underutilized. I love that quarterback. Jalen Hurts has not only one of the best stories football-wise there is, he's also just an apparent leader. I know there's been a lot of issues with injuries. I really like the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to take them in this one, in this straight-up matchup.
Filthy Philly.
Can we talk about how bad Dallas is? It is laughable how bad they are. This is what happens when you don't do anything in the offseason. And the people you sign are your running backs from 6 years ago, or washed-up running backs from Minnesota that didn't even make the squad in New York. What are we doing, guys?
Yeah, I think this is one of the best games of the week, but I'm with you, Dirk. I think actually Philly is going to end up taking the NFC East. I think they get a pivotal game here, and it starts to set them forward. It's obviously the Eagles and Commanders is going to be a big showdown, but I think this is a momentum game. Philly wins it close.
All right, next one. Staying in the NFC East, we're going Pittsburgh taking on the Washington Commanders. Their surprising season continues on, but Pittsburgh, we've had them ranked high in the power rankings. We've gotten criticism for that for weeks on end, and there's a reason why. They keep showing it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good matchup. It's a top 10 matchup, I would call it. And Mike, who do you got?
I like Pittsburgh in this one, Dirk. It's a great matchup. I think it's a bit of an upset to take Pittsburgh here, but they are the best, in my mind, I think right now, the best defensive unit in football. And Daniels is a rookie, hasn't gone up against a defense quite like this one. I don't know. It's clicking with Russ so far. It just is. And whatever the case is, I know Pittsburgh has a good power run game too. There's a lot of different support structure he didn't have in Denver, but it just looks like a better team. And again, I think if you look at the AFC, you're like, all right, are there teams that can legitimately contend with Kansas City? I think you've got Baltimore, and I think Pittsburgh is moving into that tier. Buffalo, it's hard to say. They're going to end up in the best place records-wise, but is the roster deep enough and stacked enough? Hard to say, but I do think, at least in my mind, Pittsburgh has a complexion.
And I'm going to go the other route on this. I'm going to take the Commanders at home, winning this matchup, and hear me out on this. So you've seen the reemergence of Najee Harris ever since Russell Wilson has taken the helm, but I think that's a lot of, because like the matchups, defenses have been not necessarily like playing the run like they had been when Justin Fields was in and whatnot, and I think returning to just taking away that run, stack 8 in the box when you can, go to a cover 1, make sure you're on man-to-man matchups. That's how I would play going into this, and the reason is that I would want to be beat by Russell Wilson. Look, George Pickens is a great receiver. However, I don't necessarily think that Russell Wilson alone can win this matchup, and I think Dan Quinn is going to put together a really good strategy going into this game, and I actually like the magic continuing over in DC, Mike.
It's not a bad pick. I think that's sort of a coin toss game. Tony Romo, it's a game of cat and mouse. Sort of
I don't know, Jim.
No, I just think Pittsburgh's defense could be the difference maker in a couple of turnovers in that one. So it's one to watch.
All right, We're staying in the NFC. We're going NFC North. It's a cross-divisional matchup, I guess you could say, or a cross-conference matchup.
Yeah.
You have Houston and the Detroit Lions squaring off in maybe this week's like real significant matchup.
Yeah, this one, other than the Commanders Steelers, is probably the best one. Although what happened last night, we'll talk about that in a different segment. But I think in this one, Dirk, I'm going to stick with the Lions. You notice that I left the Texans out of the teams that I just don't quite buy, and I'm just not sure I buy them as a real threat in the AFC yet. Detroit, on the other hand, looks every bit the part of a Super Bowl contender right now. In fact, it's very weird to say that Detroit might be right now the team that feels like the biggest threat to the Chiefs. They look really good.
Yeah, it's crazy. I saw a simulation the other night that says the 49ers are going to end up winning the Super Bowl, which that just made me laugh. But when it comes to, Detroit, they look like the most high-powered offense. And taking that 3 or 4 years ago and where Goff was, it's crazy. Crazy to think about. The chink in the armor is the defense. I mean, they've had some pretty key injuries with Detroit. I still love the way that Campbell coaches, but, you got to wonder how's that going to play out in the postseason. As for this matchup, with Nico Collins still out, I don't love it for Houston. But I do like it if Mixon can go over 100 yards, they can establish that run game and really take a lot of the time and possession away from Detroit. I'm going to go ahead and take Houston in an upset here. And I think that, C.J. Stroud is having a sophomore kind of slump. It's still good performances, but not nearly the, crazy year he had last year. I think as this keeps going, you're going to see Houston develop into something that can be special. And also, they don't have Diggs.
No, he's done for the year.
You kind of have a shell of what that offense could have been.
Yeah.
And that's a disservice to where this team really was projected to go. I like Houston in this one. I still am going to take them over Detroit as a huge upset.